Only a month went by, and yet it feels more like 10 for some reason. Hi, I'm Nick, and this is Required Reading on Retro Games and Nick. Welcome, folks, to Required Reading. The intro being a little tongue-in-cheek about the fact that despite starting the Required Reading series about 10 months ago, we only finally got around to going over the second issue of our very first magazine. So today we will be checking out PC Gamer number 9, which is Volume 2, number 2, February 1995. We already see that we have an 8-page feature on the multimedia issue, Is Beauty Enough? Basically, this is about, like, famous actors in FMV games. We have NASCAR Racing, Aces of the Deep, Star Trail, a bunch of other games reviewed. Never heard of any of them, which probably not a great sign. And then there's also the PC Gamer Guide to Online Gaming with CompuServe, AOL, the Imagination Network, and 6 other major services compared. Alright, let's get in. There's an ad for Magic Carpet. Sick of Doom yet? Nah. No. Never. Wow. They're really just trying to play the we're better than Doom, right? It's like, why walk when you can fly? Actually, pretty excited. I think that Magic Carpet is actually a pretty good game, so I'm excited to check out the demo that they announced was going to be in. This multimedia stuff is serious. In some ways, it's hard to believe that today's PC games are even vaguely related to the ones we used to play 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, just look at the things we see these days. Games with big name actors in lead roles, full motion video that look... well, most of it doesn't look that good, but it's getting better all the time, continually narrowing the gap between game graphics and full-blown motion pictures. The flashy 3D modeling and video were dazzling and new a year ago, enough so that many of us didn't notice that we weren't in control anymore. You could watch the video, maybe click a button or two, then watch more video. Beyond that, though, there just wasn't any interactivity. And certainly not the degree of control we had come to expect from our favorite flight sims, war games, or graphic adventures. Now we're seeing a kind of split among the multimedia faithful. There are those who say beginning gamers don't want a lot of interactivity, an excuse for taking the easy way out, I think, and those who acknowledge the limitations of multimedia and are trying to bring us the best of both worlds. I hope the right side wins, the side that wants to build real games first, and spruce them up once that's been achieved. Because if I want to watch a movie, I'll go to the theater. When I want to play Civilization, only a PC will do. We'll decide who wins, though, with our purchasing decisions. If publishers realize they can make money by doing real games, the other stuff will just fade away, and someday we'll look back on the way we remember the Pet Rock or Mood Ring. And we'll laugh. It's an interesting perspective, and ultimately, the gamers really got vindicated there. Until recent days, I feel like in a way, like gaming has really turned sort of a social platform for a lot of things. When you get like concerts and Fortnite and things like that. But so we have multimedia and gaming. Is beauty enough? It's the biggest question to face gamers and game designers in a decade. We have the technology to make computer entertainment that incorporates video, 3D model virtual actors, and unheralded graphics and sound. But is all this flash advancing the art of game design or crippling it? Steve Poole has the answers. Then there's Sports Sims, just a summary of all sports sims that are out there, and the PC Gamer Guide to Online Gaming. Scoops, which are previews of games. There's the American Civil War, Virtual Pool, and Tank Commander. And then there's a list of reviews. I see there's a Blake Stone game that's like a based off the Wolfenstein engine kind of thing. Otherwise, none of these. I believe we tried out the Fortress of Dr. Radiaki last time. There was a demo for it in the CD. The rest of it don't really look familiar, so I guess we'll see which ones are good, which ones are not. Alright. Disk pages, installing, playing, quick tips. Welcome to the CD, packed with almost 600 megabytes of game demos, patches, and more. Alright, so I've already installed most of these. So let's just take a quick look at the demos that are available. There's Cannon Fodder, System Shock, which we might skip this demo since we did play through the actual full game for an hour. Magic Carpet, Boppin' by Apogee, which looks like a puzzle game kind of thing. Mask strategy games for the Windows environment. There's like a video poker one, and a blackjack, a chess, and a solitaire. All very basic stuff. Grandest Fleet, which is a naval simulation of sorts. Siberia, spelled with C-Y. It's probably like a flight sim of sorts, because they mentioned Rebel Assault. Flash Traffic, which is interactive movie. Oh, interesting. Pinball Arcade, which is just like a virtual pinball, always fun. And Quarantine, which looks like a vehicle fighting kind of thing. We'll read through... Oh, actually, sorry, there's more. Retribution looks like another flight thingamabob. Harpoon Classic for Windows, which looks like another war game. Nova Storm, which is an arcade shooter from Psygnosis. And then there's a couple of, I don't know if they call ads or just freewares for online networks that we'll talk about later. Yeah, I think of all these, Magic Carpet and Cannon Fodder are probably the ones that I'm most interested in. I think I've heard a lot of Cannon Fodder. To me, this is like one of those quintessential like British games. I don't think I've actually ever played any of it, so pretty excited to check it out. Magic Carpet, we already mentioned, sort of like a flying shooter of sorts. Poppin' could be interesting, like puzzle games. The rest of it, we'll see. Scoop, exclusive, behind the scenes of the hottest games, the American Civil War. The definitive Civil War game at last. Empire's recreation of the war between the states lets you refight America's Iliad from both the strategic and tactical levels. The surprise hit of the 1992 television season was the 9-hour historical documentary with no big-name stars except for their voices, no live-action footage other than landscapes, and no plot other than a meticulously accurate record of events. Yet Ken Burns' The Civil War, typo in Ken Burns' name, not only became the most popular TV show in the history of public television, but it drew mass audience ratings that made the commercial networks drool with envy. Hundreds of thousands of Americans, including no doubt many who had never watched a PBS documentary before, found themselves mesmerized by this intelligent, deeply moving evocation of our nation's greatest trial by fire. Why is it that the Civil War continues to fascinate and move each successive generation of Americans? It's not merely the epic sweep and drama of the campaigns themselves, it's also the Shakespearean dimensions of the people. When Ken Burns made the shrewd directorial decision to let the story of the conflict be told in the actual words of those who lived through it, he tapped into the source of the Civil War's enduring power. The Civil War has always fared well in terms of board games, and individual battles have been the subject of some respected PC games. But no PC game has so far been able to make the entire conflict both manageable and playable. Only a handful of recent games have even tried, and one long-awaited product, designed by the legendary Sid Meier, has been delayed for so long that its appearance now seems questionable. That is interesting. I did not know Sid Meier's Civil War game. Oh, there's a game that came out in 97. That's Sid Meier's Gettysburg. Actually, very well received. I had never heard of this game before. Wow. It's a real-time wargame, interestingly enough. Alright. Yeah, no, that was, had no idea Sid Meier did such a game, so cool to discover. Into this vacuum steps British game meister Adrian Earle, with his ambitious strategical tactical simulation, The American Civil War. The quote-unquote American may be dropped from the US edition, but at least it lets Europeans know that the game isn't about cavaliers and roundheads. Earle was one of the chief designers of Fields of Glory, the first, and so far the only, PC game that came close to reproducing the beauty and color of tabletop miniature wargames. While most reviewers, this one included, gave the Napoleonic simulations high marks for originality and graphic sparkle, there were many small complaints about the computer AI. Units that suddenly seemed to run amok, and mounted officers who either rode off in mid-battle or inexplicably launched one-man charges on the enemy. Indeed, much of the labor that has gone into ACW has been focused on eliminating the problems found in Fields of Glory. Earle remains committed to recreating the miniatures genre for the PC, though as was obvious during my meeting with him in Raleigh, North Carolina. Oh, sorry. Rereading the sentence. Earle remains committed to recreating the miniatures genre for the PC, though, as was obvious during my meeting with him in Raleigh, North Carolina. For 20 years, Earle said, I was an avid tabletop wargamer. I had more than 2,000 miniatures from the Civil War period, and there was something quite grand about seeing them deployed on a huge battlefield with real hills and houses. There's nothing wrong with simply reproducing board games on a PC, but the computer is capable of doing so much, much more. ACW's descent from Fields of Glory is immediately apparent once you move into the game's battle mode. The SVGA landscapes are beautifully contoured and growth shaded, with the fences, fields, farmhouses, and dirt roads typical of Civil War battlefields. The point of view is isometric, as in Populous and a host of other games, rather than the conventional God's eye view straight down on the map. Units are exquisitely modeled, and a lot of care has been taken to make each separately programmed sprite behave in a plausible manner during combat. Smoke pops from muskets and cannon, solid shots throw up little fountains of earth, shells arc and bang overhead, and soldiers reload after firing, furiously tamping their next shots with little ramrods. Earle hopes that, in the final product, he can also program individual soldiers to thrust with bayonets, slash with rifle butts, fire pistols, etc. But he admits, it all depends on when we start running out of memory and how much of those details we can squeeze in. There will certainly be more of them than in any previous miniature-style PC wargame, but at some point we'll have to compromise between the ideal and the practical. We're pushing the limits now. You exercise tactical control over your troops by means of a love-it-or-hate-it European-style interface, in which each attitude is represented by a graphic icon/button. There are 3 groups of 3 possible orders, described as forward, stand, and backwards. The forward order dictates how a unit will respond to contact with the enemy. The normal command is simply march, to whatever point you click on with the mouse, and once you spot the enemy, you give new orders to either to advance cautiously in a skirmish formation, or to attack as vigorously as morale and physical condition permit. Once in battle, a unit may be ordered to stand in position and rest until given new orders or attacked. Hold a position until enemy pressure becomes too great, or defend as tenaciously as possible. The 3 backward orders are also logical. Orderly withdrawal, fighting retreat, or every man for himself flight, which can and often does turn into an uncontrolled rout. That's not how you spell rout in this case. Boy, the spell checkers for this article really not putting in their work. Like, Ken Burns was spelled correctly one time, incorrectly the other. Rout should just be R-O-U-T, not root. Battles can be fought out in such detail, or in the interest of time, the results can be left to the computer. Since an entire campaign game can last 200 hours or more, most gamers will probably opt for computer resolution of minor skirmishes, raids, and backwater encounters, while choosing to fight out in the big battles in full. Aside from its unprecedented effort to achieve and even surpass miniature-style realism in its battle scenes, ACW's strongest element seems to be the skill with which the battles have been nested inside a strategic game of great scope, one that factors in economics, infrastructure, weapons technology, naval operations, diplomatic shifts, and political trends, without allowing any of those factors to swamp the others. On the big strategic map, units advance in real time until they reach an enemy unit and go into battle. The timescale is adjustable, however, so that novices can concentrate on mastering the details of command without always having to keep one eye on the clock. All operational orders are given during a pause that equals the passage of a single night, and can be countermanded or revised until the passage of 24 hours game time. This strikes me as a simple yet historically convincing means of reproducing the time lag inherent in 19th century battlefield communications. When the war begins in the spring of 1861, the player's first duty, no matter which side he or she is chosen to command, is to do what historical commanders were forced to do: establish recruiting centers, training camps, supply depots, and fortifications. If there's enough left in the treasury once these basics are taken care of, you may additionally invest in upgrading the railhead capacity of strategically placed locations. While this doesn't have a direct impact on battlefield strength, it makes for improved efficiency when shuttling troops from one front to another and increases the flow of supplies. A bit of judicious investment in this area will pay special dividends for the Confederacy, although will surely strain the budget in the short run. Wisely, I think, Earl and his cohorts have made the decision to end the simulation with the crucial presidential election of 1864. If the South has inflicted enough loss on the North, McClellan Peace Party will defeat Lincoln and the Republicans and win the war, and the war will end in a negotiated peace and European recognition of the Confederacy. This is a realistic and attainable goal of Confederate strategy, whereas an outright military defeat of the North would be unbelievable even in a game. Even today, the Civil War stirs our passions, and it is not likely that any one PC game will satisfy all interested gamers. A war game that tries to simulate everything, down to individual supply columns and commerce raiders, would probably be unplayable. The success or failure of any Civil War game depends on which compromises the designer chooses to make. From what I've seen so far, the American Civil War is characterized by some very intelligent choices. It captures the awesome scale of the big picture while still offering plenty of vivid battlefield action. This could well be the Civil War game we've all been hoping for, and I for one can hardly wait to implement Longstreet's proposed, and rejected by Davis and Lee, Confederate plan of strategic defense and see what happens. In a nutshell, here's a historical simulation that aspires to distill this vast, far-flung conflict into a game that's playable as well as historically accurate. What's so special? Good Civil War games have been few and far between, individual battles have been done justice, but no PC simulation to date has been able to embrace the totality of the conflict without collapsing under the weight of its details. Why should I care? American Civil War is based on an improved version of the Fields of Glory engine and should be on the handsomest, most colorful war games of 1995. And when it's coming out? Early second quarter of this year, probably sometime in April. What else is available? Although individual Civil War battles have been successfully treated as PC games, the war as a whole hasn't. So for gamers interested in the period but new to PC wargaming, here's a rundown of what's currently available and how I'd rate each title. The Blue and the Gray. Impressions. Designer Edward Grabowski is also dedicated to reproducing the tabletop miniature style for the PC, and in this ambitious product, he comes fairly close to getting it right. The strategic game is well designed if historically shaky in some respect, and the battle scenes are, at least initially, appealing. The animation leaves room for improvement, and in melee battles, the little bitty soldiers appear to be dancing with each other rather than trying to bash each other's brains out. Rating C+. Gettysburg, Multimedia Battle Simulation, Swift International. This is quite a package, including video clips from Ted Turner's epic movie, as well as a documentary account of the historical events narrated by Shelby Foote. The game itself, which is really only half the product, got mixed reviews, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. A slick educational program combined with a solid introductory level simulation. Rating B+. Decisive Battles of the American Civil War, 3 volumes, SSG. For a long time, these well-conceived games from Australia's most respected game developer ruled the field. They incorporate a battlefront system that permits you to issue orders but not to intervene in actual combat. Some gamers like the realism of that. I never did much. Still, these are some serious simulations and they do provide considerable insight into the war. Rating C to C+. Is SSG game the Battle Warlords Battle Cry? Yeah, they're the Warlord's battle cry to people. Oh, that's funny. From Sumter to Appomattox. Adanak Command System Corporation. A hugely ambitious game that struggled valiantly to nail down the whole of the Civil War strategically and tactically. Unfortunately, the game suffered from crude graphics, countless bugs, an impossibly confusing interface, a ponderous system of logistics, and perhaps the worst written manual it has ever been my displeasure to wade through. Rating D. No greater glory, SSI. No greater frustration is more like it. The political aspects of running the war are reproduced in such lopsided, infuriating, and distracting detail that it is all but impossible, at least on the Confederate States of America side, to develop meaningful strategies. Bizarre design choices abound. The game will allow you to invest resources in ironclads and improve coastal fortifications, for instance, but will not let you choose where to put those assets. The graphics are insultingly crude and cartoony, really inexcusable, and the whole bloody enterprise finally sinks under the weight of its designer's expertise. Educational to a certain extent, but minimalist in terms of gameplay. Rating C-. We all know that the best Civil War game is North and South for the NES, which is based off of a Belgian graphic novel series. Then we get to something probably problematic. Thankfully, this is just an ad, but I am not looking forward to having to review or read through the review of the riddle of Master Lu, written in Chinese restaurant font. Virtual Pool, taking the hype out of VR. Interplay and developer Celeris are creating an incredible pool sim and redefining the concept of virtual reality too. Let's read the FYI first. In a nutshell, Virtual Pool is a 3D pool sim allowing unprecedented control of the game it simulates, and some of the best physical modeling routines you've ever seen. And then there's modem and network play, video enhancements, and some wickedly competitive computer opponents. What's so special? This one is one of the most thorough, accurate, and playable sims we've seen. It deserves to be called virtual reality because it creates a convincing 3D environment that reacts realistically to your manipulations. Why should I care? 2 reasons. First, because Pool is a great game, and no PC title has ever done it justice until now. And second, because Virtual Pool is flat-out impressive stuff. If you're a gamer, you have to see this thing in action. And when's it coming out? It won't be long, probably at the end of March or the beginning of April. I think this is the thing that they're touting as virtual reality. This stinks of some sort of sponsor thing, but Solaris president Steve Chaplin used to play a lot of pool, and in fact he almost turned pro. But instead he went into software, military applications initially. He's worked on anti-submarine warfare programs and graphics display packages for Lockheed, and Solaris was originally founded to work on such no-nonsense stuff as 3D medical imaging and military cockpit simulators. But if you've ever played pool, and especially if you've played well, you know it's a hard habit to shake. So it's not too surprising to find the high-tech crew at Solaris now pushing the envelope of game simulations and virtual reality with Virtual Pool, one of the most impressive titles I've seen in a long, long time. Why a pool sim, though? After all, you don't see many of them on the bestsellers lists. But Chaplin thinks there's a good reason for that. When I approached some people about the idea of a pool game, a lot of them said, pool games has never sold well. And I said that's because none of them has ever been playable. That's what's wrong with pool sims. Pool itself is a great sport, and it's just played by a number of people. I just felt that if it were done right, it could be like Lynx. No one got rich from golf sims either until Lynx came along. Creating the Lynx of pool is a lofty ambition, and from what I've seen, Chaplin is going to pull it off. Published by Celeris by Interplay, Virtual Pool is pretty much what the title suggests, a virtual reality pool simulation. I know that virtual reality phrase has been misused and hyped for a long, long time now, but VP deserves the moniker because it really does give you the feeling that you're in a 3D computer-generated room with a pool table, and you can do just about anything in this virtual room that you could do if you were really in such a setting. And even some things you couldn't. So if you want to look down on the table to check position of your next shot, you do it. If you want to crouch and look right down your stick to line up on the 9, you can do that too. In all honesty, the still graphics you see here just don't do justice of the game in action. Because the entire play area, table, balls, and the rest, move with unbelievable fluidity, achieving frame rates of 30 or more frames per second at times, and never falling much below 20. And that's running at a resolution of 640 x 480, 256 colors on a 486. Fluid, convincing animation was the primary objective for Chaplin and the VP design team. One of the really critical factors in creating good VR, Chaplin says, is having high frame rates. And this thing runs at a way higher frame rates than anything else out there. We felt that you needed a minimum of 15 frames per second to work. Yeah, no shit. Anything less than that and the illusions of reality begins to crumble. To achieve such performance, Chaplin says you'll need at least a 38640. And that will give you great performance, but at VGA resolutions. You need local bus video, either VLB or PCI, to get the beautiful 640 x 480 stuff. And to assure that whatever card you're using delivers maximum performance, Celeris took the unusual step of writing video for specific video cards. Lots of video cards. Our goal is to ship the game with drivers for every video card on the market, Chaplin says. Don't put drivers for new cards or anything we've missed on Interplay's BBS. In addition to moving well, a good pool sim is to model the physics of the game perfectly. Because physics is ultimately what pool is all about, and it's here that other pool games have come up short. But Celeris' work on more demanding sims and military software gave the company a real advantage in that area. We did a tremendous number of studies on pool physics, and I can tell you that the physical model in this game is very, very good. I've had World Championship pool players come in and test the thing, and it plays very close to a real pool table. Once you play virtual pool, you'll quickly realize that Chaplin is speaking the truth here. The ball movements, the action and reaction are all absolutely lifelike. You never have the luxury of blaming the sim for a shot you missed. VP's like being at a professional tournament and playing on an absolutely level, pristine table. Helping to further the illusion of an actually being there was the interface, a mouse-driven system that rotates the table and balls through a full 360 degrees. So if you're looking at a tough shot to win the match, you can use your mouse to walk down to the other end of the table and around to either side to get a closer look. The interface lets you interact directly and physically with the environment, quickly eliminating the impression that you're just watching the game on your monitor. Even more impressively, the mouse gives you direct control of your cue. You draw your cue back by pulling your mouse back. Oh, that sounds terrible. And the speed with which you move it forward again determines how hard you'll hit the cue ball. You also have complete control of where you hit the cue ball. A little English, anyone? How high you raise the butt of the cue, and more. Celeris had to write its own algorithms to make the degree of physical realism possible, but again, their dedication pays off in the finished product. When it is finished, Virtual Pool will feature multimedia enhancements and ship on CD-ROM. I haven't seen that stuff yet, though. The early version I have is pure pool. You can play snooker, too. And so impressive that I began to worry that adding a bunch of multimedia flash would just slow the game down. But Chaplin just laughed at my concern. He very clearly understands that there is a time and place for video clips. The idea of introducing multimedia components is to make the product better. Slowing it down certainly won't make it better. So the extras have been designed to supplement gameplay, not to intrude on it. You'll see video introducing computer opponents and game intros in between rounds, and in special trick shot section that you'll feature to well-known players. Chaplin couldn't be more specific yet. Making some amazing shots, then the sim will kick in to reproduce the shots and let you try them. There may be voice during actual gameplay, Chaplin says, but he thinks video would be too disruptive and seem out of place. Rounding out Virtual Pool is complete modem, null modem, and network support. It works incredibly well, too. Jesus Christ, the copy editing. Incredible well? You set up your shot moving around the table as you like, then shoot. When you're done, you stand back and watch as your opponent shoots. Again, just like in real life. Like, I don't know, like... I guess proper 3D pool tables had not really been a thing yet, so maybe they have that to market. Virtual Pool. Um, yeah, they're fine. It seems like. 75% aggregate score. The fact that it was also on PlayStation seems to me kind of disavows a lot of the stuff that they talked about. But then again, they managed to make pool games for 20 years. So maybe there was something to it. Virtual Pool 3 that came out in 2000 seems to be the pinnacle of the genre. An ad for King's Quest VII, The Princess Bride. Princeless Bride. Coming soon in multimedia CD. And then the final scoop, I believe, it's Tank Commander. Dilmark's multiplayer battle wagon. Dilmark is working on a modern tank sim that combines detailed playability and multiplayer action in one red-hot package. FYI. In a nutshell, although there have been sims that deal in modern armor combat, few have been truly satisfying. Dilmark is hoping that Tank Commander's blend of action and accuracy will change all that. What's so special? In addition to offering a detailed one-player simulation, Tank Commander provides for multiplayer action with serial link modem or network. Why should I care? Big Red is working closely with Vickers, the manufacturer of the British Challenger 2 tank, on Tank Commander, that should yield impressive realism. And when's it coming out? Dilmark is aiming for a March 1995 release, though it may be well into April. We wanted to write a 90s version of Battlezone, says Paul Ransom, project manager for Dilmark's latest sim. But as Ransom took another look at the Atari coin-op classic, then thanks to a recent Windows version of the Atari Arcade hits, he soon realized that the old games we fell in love with years ago can seem a little shallow in today's 3D rendered, Gurrowed shade. That's the second time they use. What does Gurrowed shaded mean? Gurrowed shading. Is an interpolation method in computer graphics used to produce continuous shading of surfaces represented by polygon meshes. Okay. It was literally just an algorithm that I guess was probably all the rage back then. Where were we? In today's 3D rendered, Gurrow shaded texture map world. So Ransom's company, Big Red, linked up with Vickers, the company that builds Britain's Challenger 2 main battle tank, to turn out something a little more in line with the times. When Ransom and his team found themselves up to their necks in authentic telemetry, three-dimensional computer models, and video footage of Challenger 2, and all supplied by Vickers, they realized they had the material they needed to put together a much more sophisticated simulation than Battlezone. But the guys at Big Red hung on to the other part of their original vision, a multiplayer blast 'em up. The result is Tank Commander, an armored combat simulator that balances realistic detail with fast-paced action for 1 to 4 players. Tank Commander has an impressive pedigree. The design team put in time on Vickers' own Challenge 2 simulators, based on a powerful Silicon graphics system, and they're using it as a model for the Dilmark game. Ransom even managed to down an Apache attack helicopter when he took his turn, much to the surprise of his team and the people at Vickers. We've done as best a job that we can at converting the simulation, Ransom says. In fact, Big Red has gone so far as to incorporate digitized sounds from the Vickers simulator in Tank Commander, and those sounds were taken from actual tanks recorded as their guns and treads chewed up a firing range in the English countryside. That was a bit of a coup, Ransom admits. Working with Vickers has prompted the designers to consider some changes to their simulated tank. They may drop the flamethrower and mine destroyer weapons from the final product, since the Challenger 2 doesn't mount them in the real world. Still, Ransom's team has to guess at some other elements of the modern tank combat experience. The inside of the Challenger 2 is still totally classified, for instance, and much of what Big Red was able to use had to be cleared by the British Ministry of Defense before they could even see it. Some of the details that couldn't be released were a bit strange. The team was given information on the Challenger 2's weapon system, for example, but the exact weight of the tank is a closely guarded secret. Bet somebody on the World of Tanks forums probably shared some classified documents about it at some point. If you're not sure what that's a reference to, just Google World of Tanks and Military Secrets, and yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Other facts Ransom couldn't pry out of his contact at Vickers were available in unclassified reference works like Jane's World Armored Fighting Vehicles. Jane's World Armored Fighting Vehicles. Okay. Ransom and company weren't aiming to make the world's most realistic PC tank simulation, they were after something that would actually be fun to play. As Domark's Brand Walker puts it, the designers were hoping to strike a balance somewhere between the realism of Spectrum Holobyte's tank and the multiplayer action of Velocity's Spectre VR. Leaning toward the tank side is Tank Commander's AI for a one-player mission. Ransom says that the final product will have computer-controlled enemies that respond to 9 or 10 different patterns to any given situation. And the enemy is at least as well equipped as the player. In addition to the tanks commanded by player and computer, the game promises to be chock full of support vehicles. Attack choppers, scout helicopters, jeeps, motorcycles, microlights, and even foot striders. Ransom said that Big Red has even thrown in jeeps and Chinook assault choppers to drop men on the battlefield. Chinook assault choppers that drop men on the battlefield. Those battlefields will be about 3.5 kilometers square and will come in several flavors. Desert, snow and ice, green for Northern Europe, and an archipelago of islands linked by bridges. Each of the 9 maps in the game will be the theater of operations for about 5 different missions. In one-player mode, you'll control a platoon of 4 tanks, a la Microprose's M1 tank platoon. A settle-on-map view will let the player direct tanks to any part of the battlefield, and you'll be able to jump into the driver's seat, or commander's chair or gunner station of each tank at any time. Digitized video will show crew members responding to your orders. Attack choppers will also be available to soften up the enemy ahead of your platoon, and scout helicopters can be sent to act as eyes in the sky for the grunts on the ground. The scout option is handled beautifully. You set 2 waypoints on the map, dispatch the chopper, and you're treated to a view from a camera mounted between the bird's landing skids. The view can be panned and tilted with the mouse and is rendered in black and white to add to the believability. It's a stirring experience to send the chopper over the mountains and spot a hidden enemy base, complete with choppers, supply huts, and tents. And it's just plain useful to discover an enemy tank lying in wait around the next turn of a twisted canyon pass. Leaning toward the Spectre side of the equation are the game's emphasis on action, its multiplayer capabilities, and its graphic style. Tank Commander will have serial port and modem options for 2-player games, and will also feature Snowball and network support. It must be a brand. Ransom says the game will allow for at least 4 players in network mode. More players shouldn't slow the actual simulation down, he said, but matters like synchronizing each computer with the others can make things choppy. Right now, the game's main graphics are nice, solid polygons. They're well animated and effective in keeping with Ransom's emphasis on playability. Bitmap explosions and fireballs abound, rewarding you for good marksmanship. In the finished game, the polygons will be thoroughly shaded and textured, creating an even more exciting game environment. And for additional visual flair, the designers use Silicon Graphics stations to create 3D rendered animations that will appear between missions and certain points in the action. And the Tank Commander team, Ransom, Graham Mason, John Cartwright, Lyndon Homewood, Fred Williams, Peter Ransom, Mark Neeson, Paul Jennings, Peter Clark, and Jess Gorey, was recruited to appear as tankers in the video capture segments. Ransom says that the blue screen shooting session went very well, although it took a few turns of ale to get everyone over their nerves. This has to be a British studio, right? Developer Big Red. Big Red Software was a British video game company. Yep. Interesting. They were actually acquired at the end of the year by IDOS. No way. I had no idea. Delmark is actually what became IDOS. which of course now ultimately got absorbed by Square Enix. So in case you're wondering who owns the rights to Tank Commander these days, Square Enix. That's funny. Anyway, AL, where were we? Yes. Tank Commander will also feature a separate multimedia section on the history of armored warfare, which Ransom says will incorporate video footage taken from the films Vickers used to sell the Challenger 2. Finally, the game will have support for major virtual reality hardware. Ransom was working with Victor Max, a VR helmet, at the time of this interview. He said the biggest problem with adding VR support to Tank Commander was the queasiness he felt when using it, and the sneaking suspicions that the other team members were making faces at him while he was immersed in virtual reality. It'll be interesting to see how Tank Commander fares against the disappointing but long-awaited Armored Fist and Microprose's much delayed Across the Rhine. From what we've seen so far, it looks like Tank Commander may well become the tank sim of choice among action lovers. Domark revs up 2 more for 1995. Domark has more than tanks on his mind these days, with 2 science fiction extravaganzas planned for early 1995. A combat sim called Absolute Zero, and the Orion Conspiracy, a graphic adventure. Billed as the world's first sci-sim, Absolute Zero takes place on the year 2374 on Europa, Jupiter's icy moon. The Europan mining colony is devastated when an alien race erupts from the moon's frigid core, killing a third of the population and thrusting the miners into a struggle to save humanity. Michael Anthony Keane, Domark's marketing VP, said Absolute Zero was developed in response to fans of Domark's flight sims who requested a space sim. Absolute Zero features texture-mapped 3D objects rendered in SVGA, including 12 different vehicles the player can control in combat. Gamers can choose to fight on the side of the humans or the extraterrestrials. Either way, Domark promises the game will have advanced artificial intelligence to keep things challenging. The Orion Conspiracy. Domark's entry in the world of graphic adventures combines 3D rendered full motion action sequences with gorgeous hand-painted backgrounds for an SVGA visual feast. A mystery set in cyberpunk future of greedy megacorporations, the Orion Conspiracy drops the player into Cerberus, a space research station where information on a recent murder is scarce. The fix is in and a conspiracy is afoot. Can you get to the bottom of it all? You're damn skippy, you can. Both products are slated for a March-April 1995 release on CD-ROM. I'm looking, Paul Ransom. Yeah, oh my god, this is insane. The name of the guy is actually Paul Ranson with an N. And everywhere they spell it as ransom. Like, it's Paul Ranson. IDOS. Yeah, it is insane that a mistake like that would get through. Like, this is happening every single time. Like, this is not a once typo. Wild. Mortal Kombat 2. Finish him. Smoke awaits. Friendship? All 12 combat warriors? Microsoft Golf. It's surreal you can still blame the clubs, the lie, bunkers, the trees, the rough, and the water. Excuses, it's the game of golf. Windows 95. Oh, so we're now in the news and stuff like that. Windows 95, the good news. The new Windows may actually make it easier for gamers to load up their favorite titles. The long-promised successor to Windows 3.1 titled Windows 95 will soon be making its way to desktops everywhere, bringing with it the sort of improvements and enhancements you'd expect a major version upgrade like this. But the big news of 95 isn't its increased multitasking or networking capabilities. What's really been shaking up the industry is that unlike Windows 3.1, 95 is a true operating system. MS-DOS won't be required at all. Eliminating the need for new users to learn DOS commands is an admirable goal, as the promise is the promise to make most memory management problems a thing of the past. But more than a few of us in the gaming industry have expressed misgivings about this new operating system that claims to do it all. Here at PC Gamer, our number one concern is, obviously enough, the effect 95 will have on gaming. When it's finally released, 95 will undoubtedly be the default operating system on many new machines, and will also be available as a low-cost upgrade for current 3.1 users. With the number of new PCs sold each year coupled with all those upgrades, it's likely 95 could quickly become the dominant operating system. If it proves to be an OS that's conducive to gaming, great. If not, we may all end up playing 95 Minesweeper. From the start, Microsoft's designers recognized that 3.1 had not been designed with the demands of PC games in mind. And because of Windows limitations as a game platform, nearly all serious software developers ignored Windows, despite the potentially massive gaming market consisting of Windows-only users. Gamers were therefore left to deal with nearly everything in MS-DOS, and the increasing complexity of game software has meant that there's been plenty to deal with. It's a rare DOS-based game that doesn't require the user to make some type of alterations in their autoexec.bat. I'm now wondering, is it just BAT? Do people read it as BAT? Because that's what I do, but... Because it should, right? Because it's batch. So you would read it you would say BAT extension how to pronounce. BAT file extension how to pronounce. So the Google AI overview is saying that I should just read batch. Huh, okay. Okay. You know, it's those things that you read all the time, you never think about, especially since batch files are not really a thing anymore. And so it was like, how do you actually read that? Okay, apparently it's autoexec.batch and config.sys files. Used to allocate the correct type of memory, set sunken parameters, or unload device drivers. A sometimes confusing, often intimidating proposition, particularly for new PC users. Microsoft targeted this as one of MS-DOS's weakest points as a gaming platform and set out to offer games an attractive alternative. No more autoexec.batch or config.sys files. Microsoft says that many popular games will come pre-supported by way of ready-made .pif files, or the 95 equivalent, but more importantly, the software will be automatically optimized for your system's configuration and installed devices. Detection of installed games is automatic, so you'll be up and running in no time. For example, if you want to play Doom, which by the way is supported, you only need to install the game. Sounds good, but we wanted to get more specific information on 95 and what it can mean for PC gamers. So we called the folks at Microsoft and asked them to answer a few questions, which they were more than happy to do. What if a game isn't supported? If a game fails to run or isn't supported by 95, Microsoft has included a series of advanced help programs called Wizards. The MS-DOS Wizard, it will walk you through a series of choices concerning memory issues, hardware configurations, and other options in an attempt to creating a .pif file or configuration for the new game. Microsoft claims this process will be able to handle practically any game that isn't pre-supported. And if my game still doesn't run? Windows 95 is a complete operating system, which means it has no need for a separate MS-DOS, yet it contains the full functionality of MS-DOS. If you've been unable to make your game run with the MS-DOS Wizard, Microsoft says you can exit 95, which will leave only a tiny stub, and operate in a pure MS-DOS environment. When you're done with the game, you can exit DOS and return to Windows 95. Are there any performance problems associated with running DOS games on Windows 95? Microsoft says no. Game performance should be on par with what you would get under MS-DOS unless you're attempting to run a game in a reduced window rather than full screen mode or when multitasking. While it sounds promising, you have to remember the source, and we suspect each game's specific requirements will have a lot to do with their performance. What about memory? One of the growing problems with the DOS-based games has been freeing up enough conventional memory, the first 640K of memory, also called base RAM. No matter how hard you try, if you need your CD-ROM driver, MSC decks, Microsoft CD-ROM extensions, smart drive for disk caching, and mouse drivers loaded, it seems many gamers still can't reach the typical requirement of 580K, let alone the 600K plus necessary to play some games. With 95, Microsoft has substituted the real mode device drivers, HiMem.sys, EMM386.exe, QEMM386.sys, etc., with 32-bit protected mode virtual device drivers, VDDs, which use a zero conventional memory footprint. By replacing just those 3 drivers, you can save over 80K of RAM. This has obvious benefits, but we were wondering if these protected mode drivers will conflict with games running in the popular DOS 4GW protected mode. The answer to this is not too reassuring, maybe. Depending on the sort of demands the game places on the system's hardware, it's possible these VDDs won't work. You'll always have the real mode drivers as a backup, but when you're back where you started in terms of conventional memory. How will 95 handle configuration of peripherals, in particular sound cards? Say you've bought a new sound card? Well, if it's supported by a 95's plug-and-play feature, you'll no longer need to worry about configuring things like RQs, DMAs, or port addresses. Just put the card in the right slot and reboot, and 95 will recognize it automatically and adjust all those settings for you. And one of the least heralded features of 95, joystick support, could be a real boon for gamers experiencing calibration problems. Installing games under Windows 3.1, especially CD-ROM titles, which often want to install and configure other applications like QuickTime, Video for Windows, or MCI Audio, can often be just as confusing as doing it in MS-DOS. Will 95 address these problems? Windows 95 has a feature called Autospin, which reduces the installation of a game to simply putting a CD-ROM in the drive. 95 will spin the disk and begin the game application install automatically. This is a manufacturer-supported feature that will work with MS-DOS-based games or 3.195. Some games limit my save game description to a measly 8 characters. Help! An annoying drawback to MS-DOS and Windows 3.1 is the 11-character limit on file names. Searching through directories for the correct .exe, .batch, or .com file when you don't know what you're looking for can sometimes be maddening. With 95 Microsoft, file names can be up to 256 characters long and don't need extensions, so users and manufacturers can use Bob's really important stuff or this is the install file as file names. Overall, we found there's plenty to like about 95. The new interface, networking, and multitasking improvements over 3.1 are certainly reason enough to want a copy. For gaming, however, the proof is in the pudding, so we're waiting for a chance at getting a real copy of 95 and putting it through its paces. With DOS compatibility guaranteed to be on par with MS-DOS 6.3, 95 seems to offer gamers the perfect safety net, allowing us to see what the next level of gaming may offer without abandoning a proven, although sometimes challenging, operating system. This is interesting and actually kind of has me wonder if there's a book out there that goes through the history of Microsoft operating systems. In fact, I'll tell you what. I'll put the recording on pause and do a little bit of search just for my own curiosity. Alright, after searching for a little while, I couldn't find anything specific about what I was looking for. Which again is more of a, it's partly a history and partly a deep dive on how the DOS versus, or specifically MS-DOS versus Windows 3.1 versus Windows 95 work under the hood. I know that they eventually introduced DirectX to the registry. I think Windows 95 must be when the registry was first introduced. Yeah, if you have any reference either for a book or article or Wikipedia page or anything related to what we just talked about, feel free to drop it in the comments below. I would love to read more and understand more about what was going on under the hood. I do think, interestingly enough, that the simplification of OS has had a negative overall impact on people's literacy. Like, back in the day, when to use a computer, you needed to be able to handle OS commands directly, and you could fuck it up very easily. it made you more cautious about sources. It made you like think about what you were doing a little bit more often. And anybody who used a computer in the early 90s grew up to be a skilled user of modern computers, where it's like, if you don't know how to do something, I don't know, fucking like Google it, figure it out, right? And I think that's something that's about like that's unique to late Gen Xer and early millennials, that we just have a way of figuring shit out that the younger generations don't have. Like, I know that like I'm a college professor, and a lot of my students wouldn't really be able to figure out the answer to a question that they're unsure of without AI telling them what the answer is. And again, they just trust AI blindly, right? Instead of trying to figure it out on their own. And I wonder how much the dumbification of the access to the devices, which in a way is great because, right, it opens up a lot of like accessibility of these things to other people. But how much the dumbing down of these meant that digital illiteracy ended up being on the rise and a current concern. Anyway, next column, under construction. It never fails. Just as we're getting closing out on an issue, we receive press releases, screenshot demos, and other important information on games you've been waiting to read about. Okay, blah, 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 blah. The Dig, LucasArts. It's been quite a while since we've heard anything on the Steven Spielberg-inspired The Dig, so we decided to give LucasArts a call. The spokesperson from LucasArts said the development on The Dig is fully underway, adding that many of the technologies and advances being pioneered in their soon-to-be-released Full Throttle will likely be used in the sci-fi thriller. ETA Fall 95. Prisoner of Ice, Infogrames. The sequel to Shadow of the Comet is based on another of H.P. Lovecraft's spooky tales. Prisoner of Ice developer Infogrames is planning to add some notable refinements in control and animations for the second installment in its Call of Cthulhu series. ETA late spring 95. Flight Unlimited, Virgin. Hoping to unseat Microsoft's Flight Simulator 5 dominance in the amazingly large civilian flight sim arena, Flight Unlimited's developer, Looking Glass Technologies, have concentrated on creating photorealistic graphics for craft and terrain. Fortunately for serious PC pilots, Looking Glass is also dedicating a lot of work in ensuring accurate real-world physics for the 5 light aircraft featured in Flight Unlimited. ETA spring of 95. Bureau 93, Game Tech. Remember the picture of the bikini-clad girl in the exosuit from our September issue? It's not the sort of thing you'd easily forget, so in that regard, it was a good ad for Bureau 13. Unfortunately, GameTech didn't have much to say about the storyline of Bureau 13 back then, and they're still just as tight-lipped about it now. But just to look at some of the still shots from the game is enough to get our interest peaked. ETA Spring 95. Oh, give me a home where the evil wraiths roam. Infogrames goes west for its next installment in its Alone in the Dark series. French development house Infogrames must have a budding fascination for the American West. After moving from the somewhat French atmosphere of Louisiana in the original Alone in the Dark to a cliffside California mansion in Alone in the Dark 2, the ever-popular detective of the supernatural Edward Cornby now finds himself in a western ghost town in Alone in the Dark 3. We're not sure why Infogrames settled on the American West as the site of Cornby's next adventure, but if that's where his sleuthing and fighting talents can be best put to the test, all we have to say is, settle up, partner. This time, the drama begins with a mysterious phone call to Cornby's office, leading him to Slaughter Gulch, a dusty, not-so-deserted town crawling with more evil spirits that he can shake a shooting iron at. Emily Hartwood, the other optional character from Alone in the Dark, is now being held captive by an evil force. As Cornby, you'll need quick reflexes, nerves of steel, a lightning-fast trigger finger, and keen detective sense if you hope to find Emily. Puzzle your way through the life-threatening challenges, and Cornby will ultimately uncover a threat so dire it could destroy the entire state of California. If you found Alone in the Dark 2's emphasis on combat appealing, Alone 3 certainly won't disappoint. The Wild West backdrop lends itself to plenty fast-paced shootouts against ghostly gunslingers. To complement the distinctive 3D polygon characters and fluid animations that have made the Alone in the Dark games so popular, Infogrames asked French comic book artist Joël Muclier, author of The Bastions of Scum, to create over 270 beautifully rendered backdrops for Alone 3's Western theme. In addition to the handsome artwork, Alone 3 will feature voice acting and complete soundtrack of Western melodies. This game is scheduled to be published this spring by iMotion at a suggested retail price of $59.95. Something tells me that a French company doing a Western game, like American West game in 1995, probably pretty problematic. Oh, there's this like information about things continues. Okay. Sim Isle Maxis. Formerly known as Sim Rainforest, Sim Isle is the first Maxis Sim title to be developed by an outside developer. Sim Isle puts a fragile ecology and main economic desire at odds in its full twist on Sim City. Featuring full motion video, intriguing scenarios, and lots of challenging gameplay, Sim Isle looked like it might be as much of a productivity thief as last year's SimCity 2000 was. ETA Spring 95. Pizza Tycoon, Microprose. We never thought tomatoes and pepperoni would be the key ingredients for a good computer game, but then again we never considered that Microprose would be doing a strategy simulation called Pizza Tycoon. Considering the lessons the companies learned about the backbiting big money world of Transport Tycoon and the imperial motif of colonization, we expect this to be a very interesting game to say the least. Just remember to make ours with extra cheese. Oh yeah, no anchovies. ETA Spring 95. Theme Hospital, Bullfrog. With the growing tensions and misunderstanding over healthcare legislation overflowing into Capitol Dome, it's nice to see someone taking a lighter view of the subject. After deciding to leave out the possibility of death due to mechanical failures in theme park, could Bullfrog be ready to face the Grim Reaper with a grin on its face, which will no doubt have tongue planted firmly in cheek? ETA Summer 95. MechWarrior 2 Activision. Last year about this time, Activision was saying that it was putting the final touches on MechWarrior 2, and that we'd be all playing it by the end of the spring at the latest. But those big bots from Battletech universe are still undergoing some major repair work. It seems that the earlier version just contained many user-unfriendly glitches to be acceptable. Contained too many. Again, copy edit. Has anybody actually proofread this issue? With a new design team to bring it around, MechWarrior 2 is slated for a fall of 95 release. Perhaps the company is taking the old, we want to see your robotic combat game first approach. From Sierra Dynamics, Earthsiege and Battledrome are two such titles already on the retail shelves. Look for the reviews next issue. As for Virgin's Mecha Mender, it's in the works with no set release date. V for lawsuit. Legal wrangling for over V for victory. Accusations of copyright infringement, missing funds, and a forged signature are among the elements of a bizarre set of circumstances concerning the ownership rights to the CD-ROM version of the V for Victory computer game series. Keith Zabaloui, president of V for Victory series developer Atomic Games, is asserting, among other things, the following. The publisher of the floppy disk version of the series, 360 Pacific, appears to have granted CD-ROM rights it did not legally have, to a Pennsylvania-based publisher, Mainstream America, which then issued a CD-ROM featuring the game series. Atomic had actually withdrawn the games from 360 Pacific and had made a deal with Avalon Hill to repackage them on CD-ROM under a new name. 360 retained the name V for Victory and the box art, but not the rights to the games. The signed contract between Mainstream America and 360 Pacific shows the signatures of 360 president Tom Frisina and Zabaloui. However, Zabalaoui is adamant that he never signed such a document, and the signature on the contract is not even a close copy of his signature. See accompanying interview with Zabalaoui. I don't know how to say that name. Zabalaoui. To further complicate matters, when Florida-based game publisher Intracore took operational control of 360 Pacific at the time of the latter's bankruptcy, part of the deal was to include the rights to the V for Victory name and box art. However, Mainstream America has already used the name and box art in its CD-ROM package in the belief that it had rights to those elements. Mainstream America President Craig Boyd said that his company believed it was dealing in good faith with 360 Pacific. We've done stuff with Tom Frazina in the past, and he said he could move V for Victory as well, notes Boyd. Turns out he was not quite on the up and up there. Right now, we're just pulling all the product. It's a mess, and we definitely wish we never got into it. We just want to wash our hands of it and get out as fast as we can. Asked how Intracorp will respond to the situation, the company's general counsel, Miyoshi Smith, said only, "We are in the process of investigating it, and I can guarantee you one thing. If our rights have been infringed upon or have been involved in some kind of misrepresentation, we will pursue it." The story first broke when a gamer called to say he'd just bought the first 3 V for Victory games on 3 CD-ROMs from mainstream America for a total of $20 at a Pennsylvania computer shop. But when we subsequently spoke with Atomic Zabalaoui, he indicated that his company had made no deal with mainstream America for the CD-ROM rights. According to Mainstream's Boyd, his company negotiated the rights transaction by dealing primarily with 360 business intermediary Lawrence Norman. Despite repeated attempts to reach Norman and Frazina, we were unable to get a response. The fact that money was paid to 360 for the V for Victory rights raised additional legal issues, since 360 appears to have been in bankruptcy at the time the contract was signed. Revenues from such a deal would normally be reported through the creditors' committee of the bankrupt company, and it appears that this was not the case. As we went to press, all parties involved were considering their legal options. The story is far from over, and we'll bring you the latest in next month's Eyewitness section. This is interesting. It sounds like this 360 Pacific company was shady as fuck, and everybody else kind of paid the price for it, right? The developer got its copyright stolen. The company that just wanted to put the games out on CD sort of got screwed and can't actually sell those. And the company that bought 360 Pacific, thinking it had the rights to that game, part of the reason why it bought it, turns out it doesn't. And so it's like, shady shit. Zabalaoui speaks. We had an opportunity to speak with a frustrated Keith, let's just call him Keith Z. And he offered the following details about his dealings with 360 Pacific. PC Gamer, can you give us a brief summary of your relationship with 360 Pacific and why it ended? KZ. We went through 360 in 1991 with our first program, V for Victory Utah Beach. At first we were wary, but generally thought we had found an honest publisher. When we released our second game, 360's president, Tom Frazina, asked if he could delay payment of half of our royalties for 1 month because he was in a cash crunch. He even offered to pay us interest on that amount. So we said, sure, but after 3 months we still didn't have our money. We began to see a pattern of Tom robbing Peter to pay Paul. He'd repeatedly told us he'd been able to pay us after the next non-atomic product came out. By the time our third game, Market Garden, came out, we knew that 360 was over $2 million in debt, and Tom was talking about selling the company. We should have been long gone by then, but he had our money and we had no place to go. We finally got some of our Market Garden money, but none of our gold Juno Sword money. Not a penny. Despite repeated attempts to negotiate with Tom and repeated promises for him that he would send us our royalties, I found myself with $30 in my account. So we retained an attorney who sent Tom a letter. From that point on, Tom would not speak to us, meet with us, or negotiate with us. So we hired an accountant to audit his books. The most significant intangible thing she found was over $400,000 of foreign royalty advances that 360 had received, but never reported to us. Tom claimed that none of the money was for any of the 4 V for Victory products. 2 months later, we were able to freeze 360's corporate assets. It was then that Tom decided to talk to us after he went on a trip to London. The result was a settlement agreement which confirmed that the publishing agreement for V for Victory was, in fact, terminated, and that 360 could not sell any Atomic products after January 31st, 1994. After that, Tom and his employees would frequently try to talk us into bargain distribution deals for V for Victory. We turned down every such deal. We'd had quite enough of Tom and his schemes for free money. PC Gamer. What rights related to the V for Victory series did 360 Pacific retain when you parted company? KZ. 360 retained rights to the name V for Victory, the logo, and the general look of the packaging, the trade dress. We retained all rights to the program code, including the overall look and feel of the games. PC Gamer. What did you have planned for the future of the 4 original V for Victory titles? KZ. Atomic Games had just concluded a contract with our publishing partner, Avalon Hill. We plan to release the Mac and PC versions of all 4 of the games in one CD-ROM, under a different name and with different packaging. PC Gamer. Did you sign any contract with mainstream America for the product, distribution, and or sale of the V for Victory games on CD-ROM? KZ. No. Is the signature in the contract with mainstream America your own? No, it's not even close. Would you care to speculate how your signature got in the contract? Clearly, someone else put it there. What efforts are being made to resolve this issue? I'm making every effort to nail the son of a bitch that forged my signature. Interstate forgery, copyright infringement, and grand theft, all federal felonies. I simply can't believe the stupidity of this forger to imagine that I wouldn't find out and that I wouldn't prosecute. I am now very curious to see how this thing, V for Victory game, how this affair turned out. Oh shit! Atomic Games are actually the people from 6 Days in Fallujah. The fuck? Wow. That is insane. Though I can't figure out what happened to 360 Pacific. Um, hmm. 360 Pacific. V for Victory suit. Forge signature. Man. Yeah, I can't find anything immediate. I am very curious as to how the whole thing worked out, but no immediate information from it. XCOM, Terror from the Deep. Get ready for the sequel to one of 1994's best games. The folks at Microprose know what to do when they have a hit on their hands. They make a sequel. And gamers who couldn't get enough of XCOM couldn't be happier. The sequel is called XCOM Terror from the Deep, and it will take your UFO defense forces to a whole new level. Below sea level, to be exact. As Terror from the Deep opens, the aliens from the original game have changed their strategy and initiated a second line of attack in the war for Earth. They've contacted a hidden army of their alien brothers hibernating for ages in the shadowy depths of the Earth's oceans. And now those monsters are awakening Japanese movie style. Looks like a job for the extraterrestrial combat unit. Of course, in the sequel to a classic project like XCOM, a new battleground has to mean more than new maps. Terror will also introduce new aquatic creatures and a whole new world of undersea technology, not to mention new graphic effects to depict an undersea environment. XCOM Terror from the Deep is being developed by Microprose UK and is tentatively slated for a summer 1995 release here in the States. We have a series of top 10 lists. Babbage's has Doom 2, followed by Wing Commander Armada, and then Myst. So we're starting to get the Myst effect is building up here. Software, etc. Doom 2, Colonization, the Lord of the Rings bundle from Interplay. I wonder which games these are. Whereas PC Data's top 10 list has Myst first, then TIE Fighter. It's interesting. Doom 2 doesn't even appear here. I wonder why. The PC Gamer playlist. Is there such a thing as too many God games? Matt certainly thinks there is, as he kept repeating, "Quit screwing around and get to work," so often that it began to sound like some sort of mantra. Funny thing is, he'd chant like that as he sat glued to a few unassigned favorites. Another big crowd pleaser was the arrival of Interplay's Virtual Pool beta. We've seen billiards on the PC before, but nothing like this. The designers at Celeris have created a wonderful representation of one of our favorite pastimes, and it's going to be an absolute must-have for all pool fans. And finally, in a manner befitting the desktop general, William R. Trotter's first few days as PC Gamer's senior writer were spent taking fire from SSI's latest wargame creation, Panzer General. So their playlist is Magic Carpet from everybody, Virtual Pool from everybody, Panzer General from Bill and Joe, Ecstatica from Dan and Shelley, Metaltech Earth Siege, Dynamics, from Dynamics? Oh, made by Dynamics, I see. From Dan and Todd. Bioforge, then One Must Fall 2097, then Transport Tycoon Demo, then Nova Storm, then Doom 2. The new Mindscape presents Dragon Lore. Only the reviews are stronger than the dragon. Looks like a first-person RPG. Is beauty enough? Multimedia and gaming. There's no doubt that professional actors, a high-quality soundtrack, and live-action video clips can be valuable components of a PC game. So why do we see games that look great, sound wonderful, but just aren't much fun to play? The world of computing is often largely defined by buzzwords, and the biggest one of them all might very well be multimedia. Rarely has a concept had such an immediate and powerful impact on the growth and development of a major industry, and what's most amazing of all is that there's little or no agreement as to exactly what constitutes multimedia. Some insist that a product isn't truly multimedia unless it has digitized video. Others say that the use of audio, music, speech, and or sound effects, along with any type of graphics, makes for a multimedia presentation. But for most people would agree that the most critical ingredient to multimedia is CD-ROM. The 600 megabyte plus capacity of a CD-ROM makes possible the use of live-action video, digitized speech, 3D model graphics, CD quality music and sound effects, and other goodies that are simply too big to store on floppy disks. It's easy to see how these things are ideal for applications like an electronic encyclopedia. Instead of reading about the Beatles, for example, you would instead click on the digitized photo of the Fab Four and see a video clip of the 1966 Shea Stadium concert, or hear excerpts from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The arrival of the CD-ROM marked a breakthrough in software, providing a leap in visual and audio quality that had the potential to convince millions of new users that computers looked as good and were as easy to use as a VCR. Birth of a notion. Many game publishers were excited too. Wouldn't it be great, they thought, if instead of controlling a cartoon-like character in a game, you could see high-quality video footage of a real actor? Why, it would almost be like a movie. Except it would be a movie in which you were the star and director, rolled into one. It was this notion, that computer games could look as good as film and TV, that gave birth to the whole idea of multimedia games. And some would say that's where the trouble started. As almost any PC gamer will tell you, the key ingredient to the success of computer games is interaction. Regardless of the genre, computer games give players the chance to control, to varying degrees, their entertainment environment. Listening to dialogue and watching characters interact in a movie can be satisfying, but the ability to become a vital part of the environment is potentially more rewarding. Digitized video, whether it's normal film footage or actors shot against blue screen and superimposed on rendered backgrounds, can look impressive in a game, but let's face it, how much interaction can you have in a game based on pre-recorded sequences? By its very nature, video footage limits open-ended exploration. It's impossible to record video footage to reflect every action a player can take, at least in most games. Designers have used several techniques, which we'll talk about later, to mask this fact, while others have opted for highly detailed rendered images and animations instead of videos. But all this raises several questions. Is it worth the fuss? Has multimedia made for better games, or is it simply a handsome facade for ultimately shallow products? If it is, are there ways that multimedia can be used to truly enhance interaction, to create a more visually and orally convincing game world while allowing for a high degree of involvement on the part of the player? We're going to answer these questions by looking at various types of multimedia games to see which techniques work and which ones don't, and to try to puzzle out just what we can expect from this nebulous but potentially amazing art form. That's a print. The games that are most instantly recognizable as multimedia products are ones in which all the action is depicted with video footage. From a development standpoint, live-action video undoubtedly cuts down on the length of production schedules, but it brings problems too. There's the question of which video standard to support: MPG, Indeo, Real Magic, QuickTime, etc. And there's also the expense of hiring professional actors, filming on location, and more. Oh, and let's not forget the most important problem: how to make it interactive. The game that led the way for all other video-based products was ICOM's Simulations' Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, due largely to the fact that it was bundled with many of the first wave of CD-ROM drives sold. While minor enhancements in video quality were made to Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective 2 and 3, gameplay remained basically the same. After viewing an intro video sequence setting up one of the 3 cases in each game, you're presented with a screen with icons for a notebook, phone directory, the London Times, a horse and carriage for traveling, etc. Using all available information, you choose where to send Holmes and Watson, select an important location, and you're shown a video clip giving you more leads. You are unable to interrogate witnesses, however. When you think you've gathered enough evidence, you can bring the case to court and see if you manage to correctly finger the culprit. Problem with Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective are common to many other video-based games. There isn't much interaction and there isn't enough gameplay. While the video quality is very good, the acting respectable, and the sets believable, all but the most inexperienced gamers will breeze through any of the installments in less than 8 to 10 hours. The designers tried to give the game replayability by basing your score on how many places you had to visit and accumulate an adequate amount of evidence, but come on, who's going to replay a mystery game they've already figured out just in order to get a better score? Creative multimedia corporations must have realized that for the setup, Who Killed Brett Pennance with 3 different storylines, and the murderer is different each time you play one of the 3. Before we continue, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is a fantastic board game. Had many a fun afternoon in grad school with a group of friends just basically solving one case, and we would set up boards, keep track of the leads that we were using. It's fantastic. But yes, it's essentially you think through a case, you pick the next lead, and then you see what you get, and then you examine the information you're given, and you move on, right? So, not the most interactive thing, even in a board game, setting, right? You're not rolling dice or doing things. You're just, I'm gonna make this decision. I read a paragraph, and now I'm back to the start. Where are we? Here. Gameplay in Brett Pennance bears some resemblance to Consulting Detective, but is more involved. You must visit the crime scene, examine, but not collect, physical evidence, visit witnesses, and even verify alibis. Once again, you never really ask questions. Just clicking on a suspect's photo causes them to spill your guts. The video window is obscenely small, the footage grainy, and even though the murderer is different each time you play one of the stories, almost all of the peripheral stuff, in particular everyone's alibis, remain unchanged. In the end, it has about as much replay value as the Sherlock Holmes games, but doesn't look quite as good in the process. One live-action video game players won't beat in a few hours is Dracula Unleashed, ICOM's much-hyped thriller from last year. The game casts you in the role of Alexander Morris, a Texan who's come to London to unravel the mystery of his brother's death. The quality of the digitized video in Dracula Unleashed is very good, and the addition of an inventory system gave the game the feel of a traditional adventure game. At first glance, it looked as if someone had created a game based entirely on live-action video that was really interactive. But like the Holmes games, Dracula Unleashed doesn't let you question the characters you meet, so success is based mostly on being in the right place at the right time in order to see the right video clip, a drawback that can be traced directly to limited interaction. Oh, there are some vague clues where you should go, but rarely can you know when to go there. And about that inventory system. To use an item, you must go to the inventory screen and put an object in hand before entering a scene. A maddening requirement that could have been avoided if the developers had provided an option to access your inventory halfway through a video clip, then continue on with video appropriate to your decision. Worst of all, however, is the acting. It's almost uniformly stagey and ham-boned, often evoking laughter rather than suspense of fear. Can I ask you a few questions? In all the games, the inability to really talk to the characters you meet severely limits interactivity. Instead of your actions affecting the characters you meet in-game, they merely determine which characters you meet and when. It's a format that seems suited more for a Laserdisc player than a high-end PC. And in fact, both the Holmes games and Dracula Unleashed were ported to Philips' CDI system completely unchanged. So developers intent on creating all video games tried a different tack. Since the demise of text-based adventures, many adventure games use dialogue trees. You know, where you choose one of several questions or responses during conversations, with the selection determining the computer-controlled character's response or action. So why not use the system in video-based games? It would be simple. Just let the player pick one of several dialogue choices, go grab the suitable video segment of the CD-ROM, and voila, interaction. It seems a good model, but we've yet to see it implemented in a satisfying manner in games that are based solely on live-action video. One of the first attempts, Tsunami's Man Enough, may have been the worst. The premise of the game is that you have to date and hopefully score with one of 5 ladies from a dating agency. Each meeting runs the same course. You receive a phone call from the head of the service telling you to meet one of the women at the gym. From there, you do nothing more than pick a line, wait for a response, pick another line, wait for a response, and so on ad nauseam. Make the right dialogue choices and you get to go on a date and choose more lines. If you're really smooth, you're teased into thinking something naughty might happen, but something always crops up to postpone the hanky-panky. After going through this mind-numbing routine with 6 dates, you learn it's all been a big joke. How appropriate. Man Enough does almost nothing well. For starters, there's no video during the conversations, just static digitized photos. The video footage shown during the dates, a bike ride, a parachute jump, a game of paintball, is subpar, and the lines you're forced to choose from on the static screen are so sophomoric that you feel embarrassed being forced to select one. Tsunami's next all-video effort, Flash Traffic, fares considerably better. You play as an FBI agent in Los Angeles trying to track down a nuclear bomb before it's mushroom cloud time. Again, interaction consists only of choosing questions and responses, but now you're shown actual video clips of the people you're talking to. We've not played a lot of Flash Traffic, it arrived as we were well into this issue, but at least the dialogue choices are realistic and the acting is above average throughout. If you have the CD-ROM edition of this issue, you can try Flash Traffic on the demo disc. Ooh, that's for us. The only noticeable flaws are the voice that's used for your character sounds like Hoyt Axton on Goofballs, and the full-screen video segments are muddled severely. It looks like someone's placed a gauze over the screen. But even if the video looked great, you still have limited options when it comes to exploring the game environment. In a traditional graphic adventure, you can look at objects, pick them up, talk to any character who doesn't run away, and sometimes try to chase down ones who do, and then use the information in creative ways to solve puzzles. That just isn't possible when you're dealing with digitized video. The Psychotron from Merit bills itself as an interactive mystery. The game puts you on the trail of a stolen device that can channel psychic power or something like that. The video quality in Psychotron is better than Men Enough or Flash Traffic because it's a Windows-based product, and some of the actors turn in decent performances. But the game is fatally crippled by a linear structure. You can only visit scenes in a certain order, and you can never revisit a place you've already been. Perhaps the best video games are the ones that are the least ambitious, arcade shooters. American Laser Games' Mad Dog McCree, Mad Dog McCree 2, The Lost Gold, and Crime Patrol, the last one is reviewed in this issue. Oh, we are still playing Crime Patrol in 60 Minutes This Way. That's going to be exciting. Not a good game, most likely, but at least it's going to be fun. Are all basically shooting galleries with actors in live-action video footage serving as the targets. There's no need for exploration here. The only thing you need to puzzle out is whether the person popping out on screen is a good guy or a bad guy. These games don't last a long time, somewhere between 4 and 8 hours tops, but the acting is solid, the action fast-paced, and the system requirements fairly minimal. They're especially good for parties. Just get the game up and running and let your friends try their luck at outgunning the villains. The best of both worlds. While some developers continue to forge ahead with games consisting of nothing but digitized video, the majority of designers have opted for either a mix of digitized video and rendered backgrounds, or for using applications like Silicon Graphics Workstation's 3D Studio and Autodesk Animator to create photorealistic characters, backgrounds, and animations. One of the earliest CD-ROM adventures and one of the best-selling was Virgin's The Seventh Guest. The game takes place in the mysterious mansion of evil toymaker Henry Stauff. The player is one of the 7 guests who have been invited to the house by Stauff. Thing is, the other guests are all ghosts, and you've got to solve a series of puzzles to learn their stories and discover Stauff's secrets. All the rooms in the house were lovingly rendered in SVGA and represent some of the best graphics work ever done for a PC game. But there is much less agreement on how 7th Guest rates as a game. The rooms, while hauntingly beautiful, can be explored in a conventional sense. You simply click in a direction and are taken to a new scene. And the gameplay is contrived, consisting of a series of old puzzles ladled on top of the graphics so much like so much gravy. Last but not least, the acting is bad with a capital B, reminiscent of a high school play, and a poor one at that. Similar in structure to 7 Guest is IVI Publishing's Blown Away. Although you're supposed to be playing as a bomb squad expert trying to track down an explosive streak, the game is basically a series of puzzles connected with video sequences, and only in that regard is it a multimedia game. Check out the review in this issue for the complete rundown. Ooh, that also sounds interesting. Return to Zork, on the other hand, is the perfect example of how multimedia elements can add tremendously to the wonder and thrill of moving through a game world. While the interface is unique in presentation, it still allows you to perform actions like talk, pick up, use, look, open. Interact with the game world. All the characters in the game were filmed against blue screens, then the video was superimposed on rendered backgrounds. The result? A realistic look and feel, but not at the cost of depth of play. With excellent performances throughout, Return to Zork stands at the forefront of products calling themselves multimedia games. An initially promising entry from last year was MediaVision's Critical Path. You play as a helicopter co-pilot who's crash-landed on an island ruled by an insane drug dealer. After an intro scene, you're placed in a control center with a monitor where you can see your friend Kat, the copter pilot, trying to locate you. Your mission? To save Kat from various dangers by deriving clues from a diary, then using the info to operate machine guns, electric chairs, sirens, and more. Despite its voyeuristic nature, Critical Path succeeds on several important, I assume, levels in a multimedia game? Oh, no, my bad. Despite its voyeuristic nature, Critical Path succeeds on several levels important in a multimedia game. The QuickTime video is crisp and fluid, the music and sound effects work to build tension, and the actors turn in first-rate performances. But it was all for naught since gameplay was limited to punching in key codes, then sitting back and finding out if you made the right choice. The good news is that MediaVision listened to the critics and is determined to give its next multimedia game, The Daedalus Encounter, much more play value. See sidebar. Wrath of the Gods by Luminaria avoided that trap by using standard adventure game conventions. Based on an amalgam of Greek myths, Wrath has plenty going for it. A timeless storyline, a legion of interesting characters, interesting puzzles of varying difficulty, and a simple yet effective set of command icons. In fact, Luminaria probably should have opted for traditional graphics, for Wrath's biggest problem are its attempt to be a multimedia game. Digitized photos of modern Greece are used, so the scenery looks more what you'd see in a postcard in a game set over 2,000 years ago. The animation, most of which is painfully slow, consists of digitized actor, and in some rendered monsters, moving against the unconvincing backgrounds, and does little to suspend your disbelief. In one scene, a close-up of a beggar woman, the designer used a still photo of everything but the face, so her head moves but her shawl doesn't. It looks like she stuck her head into a beggar woman cardboard cutout, and proves that trying desperately to make multimedia fit where it doesn't belong can be a big mistake. One of the most interesting and unique multimedia games of the past year is Eidolon's Millennium Auction, a futuristic art auction simulator that combines 3D model characters, stunning digitized art, both real and fictional, and a fair amount of strategy. The multimedia elements have been carefully crafted so as to become a vital part of gameplay. You read papers, watch TV news reports, and chat with fellow auctioneers, all with the goal of deciding which pieces of art coming up for sale will increase in value. Except for new items up for bid, there isn't a lot of variation in play from game to game, but the clues you receive are vague enough to make each outing a challenge. And when you talk or eavesdrop on other characters, you're treated to some fairly surreal cutaway sequences that actually affect gameplay. Perhaps the most important aspect of Millennium Auction is that it's obviously a game crafted around the concept of multimedia, rather than arbitrarily placing multimedia elements into a traditional game structure. It's also one of the few multimedia entertainment titles that isn't an adventure game. Practice makes perfect? Looking over the track record of multimedia gaming to date, you might think that multimedia and gaming just aren't a great mix, frequently failing to provide the rewards of regular computer games. But it merely proves what we've known all along. It takes time for developers to learn how to best take advantage of new technology. A good analogy can be made to the 16-bit Super Nintendo. Stop laughing. It took nearly 2 years for video game developers to learn the potential of that platform and start making games for it that were as good as the ones for the 16-bit Sega Genesis. Same thing's happening here, just on a more ambitious level. A great example of how multimedia can be used effectively is Access Software's Under Killing Moon, winner of PC Gamer's Editor's Choice Award last issue. As in many of the games we've mentioned, you interact with characters in video sequences by selecting from a dialogue tree, though here you select an attitude rather than a specific line, and the acting is extremely good. It should be, what with actors like Brian Keith and Margot Kidder in the cast. But what makes Killing Moon so special is its unrivaled level of interaction when you aren't engaged in dialogue. From a literal first-person point of view, you have unheard of ability to explore each scene in the game. If you want to look into a desk, for instance, you don't place a hand icon on the desk and click, as you might in a traditional game. Instead, you must walk over the desk, look down at the drawer, open the drawer, then look inside. It creates a level of realism that is unrivaled in computer adventures. I'm not sure I agree, but... And while we haven't had a chance to play the final version, Origin's Wing Commander 3 is another step in the right direction. It too features baked name stars, almost a prerequisite for a multimedia game, since gamers will automatically compare the acting they see in the video segments of a game. And by interweaving the consequences of both dialogue choices and performance in stunning SVGA combat scenes, Origin has created a game that truly makes you feel as if you are the central figure in a very compelling drama. So it's clear that multimedia doesn't necessarily limit the level of interaction in games, and in fact can make our favorite games even better. But there's one other issue that's even more crucial. Through the next wave of computer gamers, folks who've just bought multimedia PCs and who've never played a computer game before really want games that are deep and challenging. Or will they be happy to sit back, press a few buttons, and watch video footage? Only time and sales figures will tell. Of course, what really happened is that 3D took off, and then having that whole extra dimension gave people a lot of extra things to do with it that could not be replicated with full motion video. To me, the standout full motion video still is the Gabriel Knight 2, The Beast Within. To me, that game, I'm not going to say it's flawless, but it is very near and dear to my heart. We've played it before on the old channel, but maybe it's time to just hang up the old channel and do a fresh playthrough of most of the stuff that was on there, just with the new branding and all that. But it's an adventure game, and then each time you interact with something, there was a little FMV scene showing what happened, with very good performances at that, and just very compelling characters all around. But yeah, just the multimedia fade. Fade. What am I trying to say? The multimedia. God, there's a word for it. I'm just not coming to mind. I'm having a brain fart moment. I apologize. But fad. There we go. The multimedia fad was not gonna last long, right? 3D gaming was gonna take over pretty soon, and these days, FMV games are still like a subset of games. They're typically low budget, corny, but at the same time have kind of their own unique charm, and so people like it very much. Um, Favorite more recent FMV game is by far probably Contradiction Spot the Liar. So go check that out if you're interested. I think when DVDs got super popular and super affordable, a lot of these adventure games could also be repurposed as like DVD adventures. Things you could literally play in a DVD player. Um, but yeah, in recent years, of course, we've moved further and further from this idea of FMV games. Let's see a couple sidebars that we missed. Pretty is as Pretty does. With the Daedalus encounter, Mechadeus is set to prove that multimedia gaming isn't an oxymoron after all. Even though it was released almost a year ago, Critical Path still ranks as one of the most handsome multimedia adventures yet developed. It was created by filming actors on blue screen, then superimposing them over backgrounds created primarily with 3D Studio, and the subsequent QuickTime movies that made up Critical Path, though framed in a fairly small viewing window, were extremely convincing. The strong performance by Ellen Weisinger as Kat, the heroine, lent the game an impressive cinematic air, as did the dynamic soundtrack. At first glance, it looked as though newcomer Mechadeus had a winner on its hands. Unfortunately, Critical Path shared one other quality with movies. It was a very passive experience. And even players who accepted the game on those terms didn't leave the game happy because it simply didn't last long enough. Just as you were beginning to feel involved in the story, it abruptly ended. Reports of veteran players finishing the game in an hour or less weren't uncommon. Mark Giambruno, creative director on Critical Path, freely admits that the game wasn't long enough, but points out that it wasn't a problem in the design of the game. The main reason for the various problems with Critical Path was that we just didn't have enough time to do a fully realized game. After Multimedia, a company specializing in point-of-sale retail demos for companies such as Compaq, IBM, and Prodigy, formed Mechadeus in order to get into the gaming market, we basically had a 4.5-month deadline to come up with something entirely new, different, and exciting. We'd never really done a game before. Critical Path was designed as what I'd call a demo, and fortunately it was marketed as a complete game. That concern for creating a complete game was probably the biggest reason for the delayed release of the Daedalus Encounter, which was originally scheduled to ship before Christmas of 1994. The game puts you in the role of Casey, a 22nd century soldier so severely wounded during the First Intergalactic War that his consciousness had been placed in a flying probe by buddies Ari, played by Winsworth star Tia Carrere, and Zach, Christian Boscher. At the end of the war, Ari, Zach, and Casey start up a spaceship salvage business, but on their very first outing they become entrapped inside an object that's part ship, part living creature that's on a collision course with a star. Your goal? Discover how to navigate the ship in time to avoid being fried to a cosmic crisp. To make the puzzles more varied and challenging than the one-dimensional offerings in Critical Path, Mechadeus turned to Scott Kim, who designed the puzzles in Disney Software's Heaven and Earth. But Giambruno is keenly aware that there is much more to interaction than coming up with a lot of puzzles. Naturally, the quality of the puzzles is important, he says, but truly integrating them into the gameplay is equally crucial. We want the cinematic sequences to gradually flow up to the puzzles so that when players start working on one, they won't feel as though they've left the drama and action of the story behind. Another way to create more involved and absorbing gameplay is to base success on more than simply solving puzzles. Giambruno says that besides puzzles, there are also other, more subtle things that affect the course of the game. Your whole attitude towards learning things as you're moving through the game, whether or not you're paying attention to certain events rather than trying to charge through them as fast as you can, these are the sort of things that will determine which of several possible endings you'll see. Giambruno is also aware that hardcore gamers are difficult to please. And unlike some industry pundits, he's not one to discount their importance. To me, the hardcore gamer is the market, at least for now, he said. But we're aware that there's a growing number of users who may not want a hardcore experience, who are totally happy to enjoy what I call a pseudo-interactive experience. To address the needs of these folks, we're including a feature to either reduce or completely eliminate the puzzles, so that people who don't want to get stuck trying to solve a puzzle can still have a branching interactive experience. Pleasing two wildly different groups of gamers is a tightrope act at best, but unlike some designers, at least John Bruno and the Daedalus Encounter design team know what they're up against. The biggest challenge is creating a well-balanced game in terms of interaction versus visuals. We're very good with the visuals, we're trying to be very good with the interactivity. Better than plugging the psychic hotline. When digitized speech first started cropping up in games a couple of years back, most developers seemed to have the attitude that, well, speech was speech. It didn't really matter who was reading the dialogue. If someone in the office had been in a high school play or was a drama major in college, it was assumed they had the stuff to do voice acting for a computer game. Despite the lofty claims and press releases of the high drama brought to PC games by the addition of digitized speech, there was an unspoken sentiment that the voice acting was just gravy, more of a value-added feature than an essential component of gameplay. But it didn't take long for players and reviewers to start bitching in unison about the poor quality of voice acting in most computer games, and for a while it seemed that maybe it would be better to just let the players imagine how the dialogue sounded rather than suffer through the stiff, wooden deliveries that were becoming the trademark of interactive entertainment products. For developers serious about the possibilities of speech in games, the only remedy was to do what producers of cartoons and animated features had to do. Hire professional actors, people with the training, experience, and inclination to bring a character to life using only their vocal talents. And so a sub-industry was born. Actors who had little luck lining up regular gigs now had a place to turn for work, albeit a small one at a time. And to their credit, their voice acting in games showed dramatic improvement. Then came multimedia and live-action videos. Developers had learned the hard way that consumers weren't going to accept amateur voice acting, even if it was in a computer game. It didn't take a marketing genius to figure out that it wouldn't put up with subpar performances in video clips either. Like it or not, gamers were certain to compare the performances of actors in digitized video sequences to a game to what they saw in movies and on television. Once again, the answer was clear: hire professionals. And thanks to the fact that gaming software is one of today's hottest and fast-growing industries, acting in computer games has now become more important, more profitable, and, thanks to some deft PR work, decidedly more noticeable. But despite the increasing number of roles and fairly impressive salaries made possible by interactive entertainment software, there's still a nagging sense that computer games are the place where actors go as a last resort. Sort of a love boat of the 90s, if you will. To be fair, there's no question that we've seen some good performances in PC games, but even the most considerate of us have to admit that there are quite a few actors who are no longer marquee names for, or to be brutally honest, never really were marquee names, earning top billing as stars of PC games. Here's a look at some of the ones who've made the jump from film and TV to multimedia PC games. Mark Hamill, of course, very, very famous for all his voice work. Most embarrassing vehicle, Black Magic Woman. Yeah, I'm not gonna go read through these because I really don't know most of these. Like some people, like Dennis Hopper and Mark Hamill are the only two names that I recognize. But apparently there was a porn actress of some kind, Ginger Lynn Allen, that was in Wing Commander 3. Lee Buchanan's SportsTime, which are host the original big fan Lee Buchanan. You see, you're too small to play pro football, too uncoordinated to make the PGA, and too smart to risk your life in a race car? Don't worry, because you can still be a sports hero in front of your computer. There are now so many sports sims, in fact, that you're sure to find a quality program that recreates your favorite game, except maybe curling and badminton. So put those cleats in the closet and get your golf clubs ready for the yard sale, because here's a look at the best sports simulations money can buy. Football. There are probably more simulations of football on the PC than any other sport. And there are other several good ones, such as Front Page Sports Football Pro, Ultimate Football, Unnecessary Roughness, Tom Landry Football, and Pro League Football. These games offer the essentials: arcade play and coaching mode, real NFL players and teams, season play, statistics tracking, and injuries. But we're looking for the best here, and what separates the men from the boys on the computer gridiron are accurate game and season statistics combined with outstanding graphics and sound. Gamers want to manage real players, and when they do, they expect realistic stats and results. But apparently, producing realistic results and stats isn't as easy as it might seem. Few sims manage to do this well, and companies are constantly issuing patches to adjust the numbers their games produce. If you demand realism as well as probability from your sports sim, it's a two-team race for the computer Super Bowl title. Dynamics' front page sports football pro and Micro Pro's Ultimate Football. My vote still goes to FPSF Pro, but Ultimate Football's much improved latest version makes it a much closer race between the two excellent sims. The latest version of FPS Pro 95 updates the game with the NFL rule changes for the 1994 season, including the two-point conversion. That's when they introduced the two-point conversion? 1994 NFL rule changes. Whoa. That's crazy. You know, two-point conversions aren't used a lot, but it's kind of like... It's kind of fundamental to the strategy of the game in close games. It's insane to me that this rule was actually not there until the 1994 season. This is an unbeatable package complete with career play that requires you to trade players and draft prospects from the college ranks. Your players age, their skills improve and then decline, and they finally retire. As coach and general manager, your challenge is not only to win games, but build and maintain your franchise. And it's all brought to life with first-rate graphics and sounds. Ultimate Football is a serious challenger to Dynamics' football crown. The most recent edition matches FPSF Pro's career play, and the graphics may be a touch better. Ultimate Football scores big for optional modern play too, which Dynamics hasn't yet offered. If you prefer the college game, your only choice is Microsports All-American College Football. And it's a good choice too, complete with all the major conferences and top 20 rankings. The graphics aren't much, although Microsports is working on an upgrade. Watch for this company's new Pro League Football as well, which should be on the store shelves by now. This promising sim boasts NFL League play, classic teams from the past, and gorgeous graphics. Baseball. Baseball remains a sore spot for serious computer sports gamer, with none of the contenders able to deliver a totally satisfying simulation of America's pastime. As in any sports title, wacky statistics can ruin even the best-looking baseball simulation. And realism-minded players don't want their league home run king to hit 80 taters now, do they? Tony La Russa II from SSI has been the reigning king of baseball simulations, and with good reason. But the king is getting a bit gray now, and not even the sim is free of weaknesses. La Russa II's graphics are still adequate, if a bit dated, and the game produces acceptable season result and statistics. SSI issues updated rosters every year and offers all the National and American League stadiums, each rendered in lovely detail. Still, the game suffers from boneheaded decisions by letting the computer manager, boneheaded decision by the computer manager, such as letting a pitcher bat while behind late in the game. The hardball games from Accolade have always been the best looking baseball simulations, with graphics that are consistently a cut above the competition. That's certainly true of the latest in the series, Hardball 3. The emphasis in Hardball 3 is looks and not statistics, a definite turn-off for serious gamers. The numbers are unrealistic, and the game doesn't track enough statistics to satisfy more strategy-minded gamers. Hardball 4, due out by Christmas, will surely boast the best graphics once again, but it remains to be seen how well the game will handle stats. But if the on-field action is more important to you than the postseason numbers, Hardball 3 or 4 might be your best bet. Lots of gamers, myself included, hope Dynamics would manage to bridge the frustrating gap between graphics and stats with its new front-page sports baseball. Dynamics had already produced the best football sim, and I hope it would do the same for baseball. Unfortunately, though the game holds enormous potential, FPS Baseball hasn't yet delivered on that promise. It's a good game, just not as good as it could be. On the surface, FPS Baseball has it all. Career play, a draft minor league rosters, and unparalleled depths of play. You aren't just told that a player is injured, for example. Instead, you learn that Jeff Blauser, hit by a pitch, has been cracked cheekbone and will be out 6 weeks. Good stuff. FPS Baseball is a joy to watch on the field, too. The flight of the ball is based on physics model, and the fielding looks almost like live action. The trouble comes, you guessed it, in the statistics. Ridiculously high home run numbers and inflated earned runs averages serve to undermine what otherwise would be the clear winner in this category. Dynamics is promising to adjust the stats, and the company has an excellent record of supporting their games with patches until they're right. I've got my fingers crossed. If Dynamics can modify the stats produced in FPS Baseball, then this sim will get my vote. Until then, though, I have to give the nod to the veteran, La Russa 2. It looks a bit old and still doesn't offer career play, but La Russa 2 still offers the best blend of graphics and stats. A new contender to watch is ESPN's Baseball Tonight from Sony, which promises the long-awaited marriage of good-looking graphics and realistic replay statistics. In addition, Microsports is reworking its Pro League Baseball, which has been justifiably criticized for its poor stats. Basketball. For a graphical simulation of 5-on-5 basketball, Bethesda's NCAA Road to the Final Four 2 is really the only game in town. The sim focuses on the NCAA college basketball tournament, and it delivers some pretty intense hardcourt action. You get all 64 teams from the 91, 92, and 93 tournaments, and you can race through a tournament quickly, having the computer resolve the games you don't want to coach. Despite an awkward interface and very limited stats-keeping capabilities, Road to the Final Four 2 is definitely worth a look. But if you're looking for real NBA action for the PC, I'm afraid you're out of luck. In pro basketball, at least, the cartridge games are where the action is. Hockey. Even if you aren't a fan of real-life hockey, there are a couple of computer simulations you might just convert you. Bethesda's Wayne Gretzky Hockey 3 and NHL Hockey 95 from Electronic Arts. Both sims deliver the beautiful and punishing world of hockey almost to perfection, with excellent graphics and sounds. Both games offer real NHL teams and players, injuries, penalties, fights, full season play, complete statistics tracking, and even the Stanley Cup tournament. Each sim has different strengths, and so picking the better of the two will depend on you. Arcade-minded players will prefer NHL 95 with its sliding joystick control and polished interface, graphics, and sound. NHL 95 also offers a complete package of real teams and rosters, season play, and statistics. Gretzky 3, while it also offers arcade play, is a bit more focused on strategy and team management. It's an older sim, though, and looks it, so the choice is yours, and you can really go wrong with either of these two great games. A newcomer to watch for is Accolade's Brett Hall Hockey 95. It doesn't carry the NHL license, but it does have the endorsements of the Players Association. So you'll play generic teams, but with real rosters. Soccer. When the World Cup came to the United States in '94, it brought with it a bevy of soccer simulations. It's a mixed bag, including FIFA International Soccer from EA, Infogrames' Planet Soccer, and Empire Soccer. All three sims offer World Cup play, player substitutions, and a bit of strategic control in the choice of alignments. But unless you need a game that can run from the floppy disk, forget about Empire. Its cartoon-like graphics and childishly simple play won't hold your attention for long. The choice, then, is between FIFA and Planet Soccer, and neither sim is close to ideal. All of the 3D perspective of Planet Soccer, you can actually see downfield action, so you have some idea in which direction to move the ball. But Planet Soccer's controls are so screwy that the basic dribbling and passing become challenging maneuvers. The winner by default is FIFA, which offers superb graphics and outstanding play-by-play commentary. It has problems, though. Your teammates don't appear to know what they're doing, so you find yourself engaged in a series of one-on-one encounters instead of pressing a planned attack. And the controls can take a bit getting used to. So FIFA's the best sim available now, but you may want to wait to see if someone comes up with a more faithful soccer title. Auto racing. Just a couple years ago, there were no decent auto racing simulations. Now there are three that warrant my unqualified endorsement. NASCAR Racing and IndyCar Racing, both from Papyrus, and World Circuit from Microprose. Papyrus set the standard for motorsport sims last year with IndyCar Racing, then surpassed that lofty plateau late this year with NASCAR Racing. NASCAR Racing, reviewed in this issue, will blow you away with its beauty, intensity, and depth of play. You'll need a hell of a machine to run it, though, at least a 486DX33 for just VGA action. But this sim brings the high-speed thrills of stock car racing to the computer with astonishing realism. If you own a Pentium, a fast Pentium, the SVGA version is even better. If you prefer racing the open-wheeled Indy cars, IndyCar Racing is a sure bet, too. Like NASCAR, IndyCar racing is so sophisticated and realistic that you'll need to become a master mechanic and chassis expert if you expect to win the race. World Circuit, while about 2 years old, is still worthy of consideration, especially if you're stuck with a slower computer. The simulation of Formula One Grand Prix racing, World Circuit brings home an exhilarating recreation of big-time auto racing, with all the tracks and a season-long chase for the World Driving Championship. And watch out, World Circuit 2 is on the way. Golf. After winning the Super Bowl or screaming to victory in a 500-mile race, you're ready for a relaxing round of golf, right? Well, then you're in luck because you have a handful of excellent choices in golfing simulations. Lynx 386 Pro from Access remains the choice of most computer golfers. With its photorealistic graphics and the wide selection of courses available, Lynx 386 remains the standard by which the other golf sims are judged. Crafted with stunning visuals and an unwavering dedication to the game of golf, it's perhaps the finest sports simulations of all. What Lynx 386 doesn't offer, and what its players have been begging for, is tournament play against computer-controlled golfers. PGA Tour Golf from Electronic Arts answers that demand, and the new PGA Tour Golf 486 has upped the graphics ante enough now to be a serious contender to Lynx 386. PGA Tour Golf 486 gives you 9 videotaped pros to play with or against in 72-hole tournaments, match play, or skins competition, which I have no idea what it is. Though lovely, the graphics still aren't quite a match for Lynx 386, but the thrill and pressure of tournament play makes PGA Tour Golf 486 my current choice for computer golf. Keep in mind, though, that PGA is a CD-only game, and it's a little more demanding of your computer. And remember, you'll need at least a 486-33 to play. Lost in the Lynx shuffle and overshadowed by its more modern competitors is Jack Nicklaus' signature edition from Accolade. Its graphics are out of date, but Jack's excellent course designer keeps this game alive for many players. Look for a new Nicklaus sim in the spring, with much improved graphics and even better course architect feature. And Axis is working on the next generation of Lynx, this one designed to take advantage of the Pentium chip. So this promises to be a banner year for golf simmers. Tennis. Unfortunately, there's not much to talk here. The only recent tennis simulation, International Tennis Open from Philips Interactive, is long on looks but short on strategy. At first glance, the game is very impressive, with video profiles of your opponents and the audio commentary during play. There are 3 tournaments on 3 surfaces: clay in Paris, hard court in New York, and grass in Wimbledon. You start each tournament to the quarterfinals since you have only 4 possible opponents. The on-court action looks terrific, and the sound effects add a nice touch of realism. The thrill of winning a volley or hitting a perfect passing shot was missing, as the game quickly settled into a monotonous pattern. It's almost impossible to hit a ball on bounce, and your selection of shots is curiously limited. No topspin shots or slices. While it looks great, this game just doesn't offer enough. In today's world of ultra-sophisticated simulations, ITO doesn't track any statistics, rankings, or prize money. Trouble is, there is no competition. Blue Byte's Jimmy Connors Pro Tennis Store, now at least a few years old, still offers more tennis for the buck. Look for it in the bargain bins at your local software store. I think what's really interesting about this whole feature is just, it again shows how back in the day, before there was extreme consolidation of everything, somebody could just be like, I'm gonna fucking make a football game and make it like the best game of the bunch. Like, none of these, none, have survived to today. Things are better when, things were just better when games were smaller and more creativity abounded, instead of now, hey, every year we get a Madden, an NHL, a NBA 2K, and a MLB The Show, and they're all rife with fucking microtransactions up to the wazoo, and there's literally nothing to do about it. But oh well. We're gonna skip the one about like the stats games kind of thing. The PC Gamer Guide to Online Gaming. You hear us talk about them all the time, the online services. They're often the sources of invaluable information, tips, news, and best of all, interaction. So join the Lupine Online for a guided tour of online services with a lot to offer to the PC gamer, including live head-to-head action you won't find anywhere else. Just trying to understand. No, yeah, so each of them is sort of describing what they are, okay. You've got to stop playing with yourself. No, really, all those hours spent alone soaking in the impassive glow of your monitor screen are bound to take their toll. Sooner or later, you'll lose the ability to relate to other thinking, feeling human beings. And then where will you be? In political office, that's where. If you want to avoid the gruesome fate, come along with me. I'll show you some cool places where you can play games live, online, with, and of course against, other humans who aren't so much different from you and I. Well, hopefully not too much different than you anyway. But come on, there's a lot to see out there on the net, and those information superhighway jocks called it. So let's get cracking. America Online. Membership costs $10 a month, including 5 free hours and $3.95 for each additional hour at 1,200 to 9,600 BAUD. BAUD. What's a BAUD? One baud is just 1 bit per second. Okay. So it's 1.2 kilobit to 9.6 kilobit per second. 14.4 baud available in major cities, which I assume 14.4 baud means like 14.4 kilobit per second. Like there's 1,000 assumed there that is not assumed here. I wish that every online service was as attractive, user-friendly, and easy to use as America Online, especially with the brand new Windows Multimedia frontend, version 2.0. The only problem with AOL, besides the fact that its phenomenally growing subscriber base sometimes causes interminable delays in the system's response, is that there aren't a whole lot of multiplayer games to be found there. Rabbit Jack's Casino provides 4 simple games for your social gambler and you. 5 cards poker, blackjack, bingo, and slot machines. The casino lounge serves as a meeting place and entryway into the casino games, where you can chat with other players, 4 of whom may participate at poker and blackjack tables, up to 22 at bingo and the slots. 2 to 8 players at a time may also compete against each other at Brother Boon's Master Word, a fast-paced game where you take turns guessing each other's secret words. All of these games go to dust from Windows to provide a simple but effective graphic display. America Online offers only one multiplayer RPG, Neverwinter Nights, a Forgotten Realm adventure in the tradition of SSI's Gold Box AD&D series. If you can tough it out alone or join forces with up to 7 other players to explore the vast and dangerous Sword Coast. The casino games, Masterword, and Neverwinter Nights all require additional graphic software, which is available for free downloads online. But you won't need anything extra for the nightly real-time games in the trivia forum, text only, though. CompuServe. $10 a month for basic services, an additional $4.8 for 2.4 kilobit per second, to $9.6 for 9.6 kilobyte and 14.4 kilobit per hour for extended services. It's not quite as user-friendly as AOL, although CompuServe has gotten a lot easier to use since the introduction of WinSim, the graphic CompuServe Information Manager TM for the Windows. CompuServe is probably the largest online service around and quite possibly the most expensive, but you do get a lot for your money. Aside from the popular forums and comprehensive libraries, many of whom cater specifically to gamers, CompuServe is a large selection of multiplayer games, most of them available at no extra charge in the basic service area. Unfortunately, these tend to be in the text-based variety, and let's face it kids, this is the 90s. If you're still fascinated by text-only games, you're probably sitting in front of one of those old roll typewriter attached to a TV with a magnifying lens contraption from Terry Gilliam's film Brazil. Still, classic FRPs like Islands of Kesmai and British Legends remain quite popular, as do Air Traffic Controller and the sci-fi adventures Star Sprint and Mega Wars 1 and 3, not to mention traditional board games such as chess, checkers, and backgammon. And then there's Sniper, a head-to-head version of TSR/SPI's World War II board game, which is kind of like playing Virgin's cannon fodder while watching old reruns of Combat on TV. Genie. Like Delphi, Genie is recently given in to their members' demand for a GUI, and their Genie front end for Windows is only slightly clunkier than CompuServe's WinSim. Genie is the original home of the heavy hitters when it comes to the multiplayer games. Kesmai's Air Warrior has been a staple there for years, with thousands of fanatical flight sim fans a week burning up the phone lines to participate in its huge combat arena. And I mean huge, there can be up to 100 planes in the sky at once. And that to Simutronic's Cyberstrike, a cross between Activision's MechWarrior and Novologic's Ultrabots. The expansive, like big, medieval role-playing strategy of 100 Years' War, and the Grand Demon herself, multiplayer Battletech. Each of these games uses its own impressive graphic front end, and it is so addictive that you can almost see your telephone budget being sucked through the modem and out the phone jack. Also available are the text-based Dragon's Gate, Gemstone 3, blah 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 blah. Delphi. While most of the other online services are rapidly adding internet access to their packages, Delphi has been full-service net provider all along, although not an easy one to use. 2 graphical user interfaces are currently in development to make surfing Delphi a lot less intimidating. Internav, the official front end, and D-Lite, developed by enthusiastic users, are both available for download. Yeah, the price of it is definitely a lot better. You get $19.95 for 20 hours a month, and then it's only 99 cents per hour for multiplayer gaming. Pretty good. Delphi's game areas is called Electropolis, and from there you can access everything from the 2-player game of Flip It, you may know it as Othello or Reversi, to multiplayer versions of Poker Showdown, Quest, and FRP, the Scramble War game, Stellar Conquest, and TQ Trivia. The big news is that Delphi is now offering some of the most popular multiplayer games around at some very reasonable rates. You can now play Kesmai's Air Warriors, Federation 2, Islands of Kesmai, and Stellar Emperor right along with players on other networks. This one thing that's boggling my mind here is that they were trying to get you to subscribe to their online service by offering games as part of it. I guess internet access at the time was very much a luxury, and so you needed something to be like, hey, come give us money, not those guys. And so they would have exclusive games and things like that. But it's wild to think, you know. The Imagination Network. Formerly the Sierra Network, the Imagination Network, INN, is unique among online services. It exists solely for the purpose of providing fun games in a sunny, friendly atmosphere. In fact, INN 2 series FRPs, such as the Viserbus and the Fate of Twinon, have an almost carefree air about them, even when you're virtually being torn to shreds by your Saber opponents. There's something here for every age group, from the Leisure Suit Larry-inspired goings-on in Casino Land, to the boarding cards games in the Clubhouse, and the simple but clever games in Sierra Land. A few clicks of your mouse and you can be playing Paint Wars, Boogers, a bunch of other games, and multiplayer Red Baron. Yes! Coming soon to INN, you will even be able to play front page sports football. The INN menu is a colorful graphic map of the many available areas, which actually changes with the seasons of the real world. When you enter INN and many of the game areas, you design a cartoon-like portrait of yourself, which is how the other players see you. This lends a real personal feeling to the proceedings. If you don't feel like playing or don't know how, many of the areas will let you drop in on a game in progress and watch, with the player's permission, of course. Or you can simply hang out in the lobby and chat with other insiders, a very popular pastime. It's cool that their GUI would be a picture that changes with the seasons. That's kind of cute. MPGNet. The multiplayer games network started out as a tiny 5,000 watt radio station in... Oops, wrong story. MPGNet actually started in 1991 and has been gaining momentum ever since. They're not very big yet, but they're very, very good at what they do. Currently, MPGNet offers 3 very sharp-looking games. The Kingdom of Drakkar, a 16-color VG RPG, Empire Builder, an SVGA entrepreneurial challenge, and Operation Market Gaiden, the two-player war game, also in SVGA. Each game operates from its own independent front end, but all will change when MPGNet's new $256 SVGA system interface goes online. Like the one used for INN, the new graphics interface provides player with a realistic physical, in quotes, environment in which they can connect with people all over the world, and it's really slick. Among the new system interface, MPGNet plans to have 4 new games up and running. Hopefully by the time you read this, they are Thief Quest, Mud 2, Stir Web, and Warlords of the Apocalypse. I mean, it's kind of nice that you have now here, these are proper games. Boy, more of these. Novalink. Inner Circle Technologies, who operate Novalink, was born in a spare bedroom less than 3 years ago, the brainchild of John Radoff, a then 19-year-old computer whiz, and his wife, Angela Bull. It's now a multi-million-dollar operation and one of the 10 largest online services in the US. Novalink provides full internet access, including sound and graphics capabilities, but they're probably best known for Legends of Future Past, a text-only multiplayer science fiction fantasy RPG. Cybercore, an arcade strategy game pitting teams of Borgs against each other in a frantic quest for available Elysium nodes, recently got a graphics overhaul and now has its own 256-color VGA front end, complete with digital stereo music and sound effects. There's also the Virtual Cafe, an online community where users interact in an Atlantic City-type boardwalk environment. Prodigy. Ah yes, Prodigy. What was once the slowest, ugliest, and most advertising-ridden service on the planet has come a long way since its inception. But if you're the type of person who changes channels the instant a commercial comes on your TV, Prodigy will still drive you crazy with its intrusive advertising at the bottom of many service screens. Still, those who like it, about 2 million people, seem to like it a lot. And thanks to its policy of editing the message boards, it's ideal for the kids. There are plenty of things for them to do, but very little in the way of true real-time multiplayer games. You can download a course from Jack Nicklaus Golf and Design Signature Edition, play it offline and upload the results, but that's not quite what online gaming means to me. On the other hand, there are plenty of quick and dirty games to play online against the computer, and some familiar titles like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, Fantasy Baseball and Football, and Sports Illustrated for Kids. Prodigy is good family-style service with very much to offer, including a new feature called Game Point, which provides you with the software to connect with the Imagination Network outside of Prodigy. It actually makes sense since each service specializes in what the other lacks. You would have to pay for both, though, I assume. Total Entertainment Network. The Total Entertainment Network 10 is an online service with an attitude, is still in beta test and only in the San Francisco Bay Area as I write this, so I haven't actually logged on to it or anything. But according to Daniel Goldman and Janice Linden Reed, president and creative director respectively of Optagon Interactive, 10 will satisfy the demands of a new generation of progressive computer users and, together with its subscribers, will be creating a new form of interactive entertainment. Sounds pretty good, and judging by the screenshot, it looks pretty good, too. It's 640 by 640 by 480 graphics are the easy equal of MPGNet's upcoming system interface. They'll be debuting with a multiplayer version of Max's SimCity at a minimum baud rate of 9600. Keep an eye out for 10. No, keep both eyes out for it. The end of our trip. So there you have it, a tour of some of the major online networks and their multiplayer game offerings. There really is a lot of fun to be had out there, as well as a whole community of gamers just raring to talk about the hobby. It's all old news to those of us who are really online, but a whole new opportunity if you're still unplugged. Check it out, do the math, and above all, have fun. Yeah, I guess online play was not really a thing for most games, and even if it was, it would typically be like a peer-to-peer kind of thing. It's really interesting to sort of read about this decentralized version of the internet. Oh, we did play the demo of this Resident Robots game. It was not good. Okay, and we have reached the reviews, and we've recorded for already a couple hours, so I think this will do it for episode 1 of our required reading. Yeah, just really enjoying reading through this magazine, getting perspective on what's like old tech from this time is fascinating to me. I hope you enjoyed it as well. We will be back in 2 weeks. No, sorry, in 4 weeks with the second part of our required reading. Because in 2 weeks, we will check out all the demos that came with the CD. Scrolling back. Quite a few. Excited to check out Cannon Fodder. It's a game that I've heard a lot of, but never really tried for myself. Magic Carpet 2. It does not look what I thought it was gonna look like, so I'm curious to see what it actually is. Um, the FMV game Flash Traffic, a little pinball never hurts. So, plenty of cool, interesting things for us to check out, which will happen again in 2 weeks on our episode of Required Demoing. Other things happening on the channel. Life of Tammy, of course, continues every other week. On Tuesdays, it is my pride and joy. I spent so much time and effort getting those scenarios set, the story beat going. Trying to really make it feel like a live environment, and I hope you've been enjoying that. I do appreciate you taking the time to checking those out, leaving a like, leaving a comment, watching the episode, because it means a lot to me if things that I spend a lot of time creating and working on, and then I really polish a lot, are then appreciated by my audience as well. On Friday, as usual, we have our alternating between hidden gems and classical studies. So this week, checking my calendar, we have the premiere of a brand new hidden gem starting. It is a game that is close to my heart. It's not necessarily a great game, but it has so much vibes to it that is just, to me, like, unparalleled in many ways. All I'll say is that it's a Nintendo 64 game, and then good luck trying to figure out what it actually is based on my little hints. Next week, we will have a full play of the Myst 3 Exile, which is, again, a great game from my childhood. Probably my favorite of the Myst bunch, just because the first one that I ever experienced. So very excited for the full playthrough of that game. Then in 2 weeks, the conclusion to Freedom Force. Will the Freedom Force save the day? Will any of the heroes perish as a result? Tune in to find out. And in 4 weeks, we have the... just double checking, is that right? No, sorry, in 3 weeks. That's right. In 3 weeks, it's going to be the conclusion of our first part of our Morrowind playthrough. We're going to reach the point of the game where we finally accept that we are the Nerevarine, or that we fit the clauses for the Nerevarine, and just are going to put a pause in our adventure to avoid the channel being overrun by Morrowind for like months and months and months. But boy, do I love the game now that I've understood how it works. It is fantastic. Alright, so that's what's coming on the channel in the next few weeks. Thank you so much for watching. This is Nick, signing off, reminding everyone to let's keep retro playing together.